I'll press record here.
Is the
And
audio level okay?
yeah, you sound great. You sound great. So Jeff Lerner, thank you so much for being here. I'm truly grateful. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you first just to share with the audience, where do you live? How long have you been married? How many kids do you have? What's your profession? Give us a little lowdown.
Yeah, of course. So I live in a town called Santa Clara, Utah, which is a suburb of St. George, Utah, which is itself the size of what many people think of as a suburb. The whole county is about 200,000 people. It's this beautiful little southwestern corner pocket of Utah, right where the Mojave Desert, a la Las Vegas, turns into the Rocky Mountain Plateau, which goes on north to Salt Lake and Park City and all that. So it's right at the juxtaposition between the desert and the mountains. And I basically live at the bottom of the mountains in the desert, but it's a super beautiful place. I've lived here for 9 years since I met my wife. I met my wife at an affiliate marketing event. I know you have affiliate marketing background, so do I. Her dad was the co-founder of a company that I promoted that was hosting the event. He introduced me to his daughter. I met this beautiful actual widow with 3 kids. And we proceeded to, I was living in New York City at the time. We proceeded a kind of a long distance relationship, and it only took me 3 months to pack up a U-Haul and drive out to St. George, Utah. And I literally will get emotional every single damn time I talk about it. So
that's beautiful.
I'm going to move right on. But and so over the next couple of years, adopted her 3 kids. They were 8, 6, and 1 when I met her. And they are now 17, 15, and 11. One of them just had a birthday 3 days ago. And so I adopted those 3. And then I guess it would have been 8 years, well, 7 years, 7, 6, however many years later, yeah. We added one of our own biologically. So we have a 3-year-old now too. So I have 4 kids, 3 adopted, 1 biological, but they're all my kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, in my business. So I have not had a job since I was 16 years old. I've had 1 job in my life. It lasted 3 weeks. I got fired, realized I was perpetually unemployable, socially, emotionally, even physically. The thought of being in one place makes my back hurt. Like I wasn't engineered for that. And so I was grateful I figured it out at an early age. Became a musician, not out of some deep yearning to sing my song so much as just a very pragmatic, like, hey, what do I have some aptitude for that I could do on a freelance basis and at least be able to eat. And so I became a professional piano player and singer all through my 20s, got into affiliate marketing when I was 28. So anyway, the point being, I've never had a job. And so since I moved here with her, I've been able to mostly be home. In 2013, started an agency, wanted to take my affiliate marketing skills and sort of stabilize them, get some retainers, some predictable revenue, and started a B2B marketing agency that I ran that for the better part of 6 years. Had a lot of success with it, sold that client book in 2018 to do what I'm currently focused on now, which is start something called Entre Institute, which basically teaches people about modern day entrepreneurship and what's out there in this world for people who might, like me, not feel that the corporate path is their best option. So.
Oh, that's a really neat concept. I've actually never talked to anybody that you kind of almost give options and ideas of ways that people can be an entrepreneur if that's their path and what they like to do. Yeah,
we honestly, the world is subject to change, therefore so is our path mix. But a lot of people say, oh, like it's like Udemy or it's like Thinkific, like you do online courses. And no, I don't think people need more courses. I think people need pathways. And in the world we live in now, I see a handful, and they're the ones we teach. There's the affiliate marketing pathway. There's the e-com pathway, which is kind of affiliate marketing plus a certain other skill set. They overlap a lot. There's starting an agency where you essentially take digital skills and convert them into B2B services. There's a whole real estate, which is itself a very wide channel, but sort of what I would call the modern approach to real estate, whether it's subleasing on Airbnb or then there's, you know, course creation and sort of general info marketing. Those are the pathways, the channels we teach.
Cool.
And part of what we do is help people understand what are the fundamentals of each and how to self-select for, you know, what's going to be the best fit for them.
I like it.
In a
That's
nutshell.
awesome. Yeah, it makes total sense. It's a
we do
great
coaching and live events and, you know, try to serve people.
Jeff, that's awesome. I have to ask you this because you said you started to get emotional. I saw it and you mentioned it. What is it? 8 years ago when you guys when you first met her, like what was it about her? What makes you get emotional? Because you don't see that a lot in guys. I mean, honestly, you know, it's not a common thing.
Yeah, a lot of times I get a lot of credit. Like people say, "Oh, it's so cool that you were willing to raise someone else's kids," or, you know, you adopted this woman's kids or something. And I just never look at it that way at all. I felt like I'm the one that got adopted by this amazing family that I just, you know, I was at a place in it's not like, you know, you don't know. So it takes a change of perspective sometimes to realize that something was wrong. I was living in Lower Manhattan as an affiliate marketer, doing really well. Single. I was divorced, but I was single. Like superficially, I had this like hotshot bachelor life. You know, life is great.
You knew how to play the piano. I mean, that helps with the bachelor life.
Yeah. I mean, I always had to compensate for my lack of good looks, and music was an effective one. But I just met her and we started talking, and I came out here, and that was what did me in. I flew out. I was going to meet her in Las Vegas for New Year's. And for some reason, she said, "Would you mind coming to pick me up?" And St. George is about an hour and a half from Las Vegas. So it's not a small ask to say, "Hey, can you pop up here and grab me and run me back down to Vegas?" So I ended up renting a car and I drove to St. George, and I met her. I basically met her kids. I loved her kid and just loved her kids. It was so cool. And then I did that a couple more times. And then her 1-year-old girl called me dad or daddy. It was one of her first words was she called her mom's boyfriend daddy because she didn't know.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't say it right then because I didn't want to like come off, you know, overbearing or heavy handed. But I was like, I like the sound of that. I like the feel of that. And just, I don't know, man, it was like a habit I couldn't kick and didn't really want to.
Wow. And that just kind of hit you like that. That's really neat. It's interesting.
Yeah. My mom always says, she's like, all you ever really wanted was just like to be surrounded by love. She's like, your needs are not, she said, they're not easy, but they're simple. You just wanted a lot of love in your life and you found it. So
and you found it. And then from there you've, how, you know, owning a business, selling it, transitioning, now starting a new one. Are you able to spend the kind of time, the quality time that you always wanted to, you know, the love with your kids and your wife?
Yeah. So I would say that it's like most entrepreneurs, it ebbs and flows. There have been times when it was everything I ever could have possibly imagined. You know, when it's good, it's great. But when it's hard, you know, our hard time isn't, oh, well, sorry, Jeff, you know, the company isn't able to pay out the Christmas bonus this year. Our hard time is, you have to reinvent yourself and you have 6 months, you know, like our hard time is at least for, you know, it's not true of all entrepreneurs, but for digital, like internet-based stuff, it just
100%
cold so fast, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, probably the big, you know, to me, a lot of it is a decision. I had to make a decision that I was going to be true to form. Because for me, it's not just that I'm an online or a digital, you know, I don't even consider it online or digital. I just consider myself to be a modern entrepreneur. A modern entrepreneur is online because you're just missing a huge opportunity for efficiency by not being online, not because It's like there's a difference between online and offline. I mean, if you're a realtor, you spend most of your time on the internet nowadays, you know? And so I consider myself a modern entrepreneur, but in particular, because my positioning now with starting this company, Entre, is I'm essentially evangelizing the possibilities of the modern economy and this approach to life, well, either I get to be a big hypocrite or I better practice what I preach. And
Yeah.
so I made a decision when I started Entre. In fact, that's actually why I sold my book of my agency, is because it was pulling me away from home too much. That's one of the reasons. I mean, it's always a
Sure.
lot
And
of
let me
reasons.
ask you about that. That what makes you, it seems like you're pretty aware as an individual. Like, what have you done? Or what do you do? Do you have a routine? Do you have like something? I know you're all, I know you have that, how to lead an awesome life. I know you talk about that stuff. We did a little research. So
Oh,
what
cool.
are some things that you do to create that?
Yeah. So I actually, I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people in the world because my company, my business is truly an extension of myself,
Mm.
but it's an extension of my best self. So I built this business that, as much as anything, was a personal challenge to say, I want to be the best student of this company. So I created this, and it's very messed up because it lives in my backpack and it gets beat up a lot. But this is the Entre Core Beliefs document, Entre's mission statement, vision statement, and our personal and business values that are at the fabric of the company. But they're literally, this is like my,
Can
I
you read
shouldn't
a
call it.
couple values of the personal and business values, just a few of them?
Yeah, I can tell you, yeah, we eagerly do hard things well, which is actually 3 statements in one. We do hard things, we're eager to do them, and we do a good job of them.
I love that.
We eagerly do hard things well. We take daily disciplined action. We're always improving. We invest in physical, personal, and professional excellence, which those are the 3 Ps that I talk about: physical, personal, and professional. And all of my content at Entre, if I say 3 Ps, everybody perks up. Like, that's a known, kernel of that's a genetic piece of DNA at Entre, right?
Yeah.
We practice effective communication and we favor possibility over probability. Those are the 6 personal values.
Yeah. And I mean, those can transfer right over to life.
Yeah. And so our whole platform is built around the 3 Ps of an awesome life: physical, personal, and professional excellence. Frankly, professional comes last for a reason.
And the reason being,
the reason being that for one, because I'm fighting against what's so pervasive on the internet, which is everybody wants to put money first. So I put professional last, but also because I view them as concentric circles. And I actually put physical in the center because I think if you're not energetically and physiologically and mechanically aligned, everything else is almost a lost cause. You can't sell. You can't even sell without some degree of wellness in your body.
Yeah, or as effectively as you probably could. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, it's showing up. It's showing up with your family. It's showing up everywhere.
Yeah. So what's your, like, okay, then I'm actually interested in your answer to this because it's cool. It's awesome do you meditate, by the way?
Yeah. So I've done a decent amount of meditation. I actually have this quirky take on meditation that I learned from this psychiatrist who was actually my friend's psychiatrist, but he would come home and spend as much time telling me about his sessions as he spent in the session. So I feel like I vicariously went to this guy, and he was all about free association. So I'll sit there for like 10, 15 minutes, just doing free associating ideas and words. And you get into some real dark, corners of the soul when you do that. Like, it's like I started by talking about baby toys and I ended up talking about death, or it's like, but there was no, you just find yourself in the space.
Interesting. You still practice that?
I do it periodically. It's not part of a routine. I have a real strict fitness routine with the gym. The free association is on sort of an ad hoc basis. I can tell when I need it. When I start to feel jammed up.
Yeah. So what are your daily expectations to yourself then? So I know it sounds like a must of you is you have to, because, you seem like you have things, figured out as much as we can as a human, right? So what are some of the daily expectations you have that can, inspire?
Yeah. I would say first, I mean, yeah, I'd put physical first. To me, I in fact, I have the book right here. Power of Habit, right? Charles Duhigg.
People keep telling me about that one.
Yeah. So one of the concepts in here is your keystone habits. There's certain habits you have that are like, the keystones upon which the rest of your life, they bear the weight of the rest of your life. And if you do them, you'll tend to do other things better too. For me, it's early morning gym session. I just got to do it. Who I am when that's a part of my life is such a better person at every level than the other guy that's slacking. I just can't afford to miss it. I work out 7 days a week, and people are like, you actually are supposed to take days off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know, but I don't like that guy on that day. So
Well,
that's the biggest.
Yeah,
and then the other thing too, I would say in general is I'm pretty obsessed with just time management and life optimization in general. Like I get really, really cranky at things like waiting in line, just having to wait for stuff. Cause like time is too precious, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids feel that because they recognize that the reason it's only because I'm like that I'm able to take care of my business and be with them as much as I am.
Yeah, that's cool. That's it. So I know the whole waiting in line, there's an actual like interesting Buddhist philosophy to that. You're actually not waiting. You're actually just there being.
Right.
So you can think of like you're not wasting time. You can actually, but and that's for another. So let me ask you this. We talked about family. You talked about a little bit, what is one of the things I'm working on personally this year, and probably that I'm looking at, is friendships, right? So how would your friends describe you? I'm curious.
My friends would describe me, I think, as I mean, to my face or with me listening, they would say he's hard work. Yeah, he's hardworking. He cares a lot about his family. He's very outside the box thinker. He doesn't really worry too much what other people think about him. It's funny. They would describe the person that I've worked really hard to try to become. And in fact, our entire conversation up to this point has really been with the person that I've worked really hard to become. But the truth of the matter is, like, I have any mastery of these things at all. It's representative of the extent to which I've struggled with them, and I don't know that my friends would see that or say that. They probably more say it than see it. But this stuff is hard.
Yeah. What would you say one of like the biggest struggles is that you've dealt with over the last couple of years that you've tried to improve or be better?
Yeah. Here's it's just the gap between cognitively what I know is the right strategy and what I've built as a model. I've taken it a little further than most people. Most people say, I want to hack my life and get better. I say, I want to hack my life and get better and actually build a blueprint. And literally I have a product called the Entre Blueprint. That's essentially that methodology for how I hacked my life and made it better. And then actually build a company around it. So I took it to a little bit of an extreme, kind of like almost like Tony Robbins. You mentioned Tony Robbins. Like,
yeah, you're killing. I mean, it's hard for me to even come up with like questions to talk to you and ask you about, because you have like so much that it seems, figured out. I don't know how to explain it. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate that. And I think for purposes of being, trying to be mindful and trying to have impact, because this is the Mindful Impact podcast. I think that's what my instinct is telling me is like, Jeff, this isn't your opportunity to like show off your polished resumes. Like I am a deeply fucked up person.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know if that's okay to say.
No, you're fine. That's great. That's great.
I'm a deep, to the extent that I have deep knowledge of practical applied psychology, it's because when I moved here to be with I've always been a student. I've always been a seeker. I've always read, other people were reading Dean Koontz books and I was reading, Kierkegaard and, Augustine, City of God, and just trying to figure life out. I've always been that kind of person. But when it really, my therapist always says, insight is not therapy. Experience is therapy. You can have all these aha moments and it doesn't change anything. And I read books and books full of enlightening aha moments. But it was when I moved here and decided to become a father to 3 kids that were not biologically mine, and decided to become a husband to a woman who was previously a widow from suicide. And just, it was when I took on a lot of real heavy life stuff, and we started going to therapy, partly because it was not a seamless integration. We were fighting a lot, having a lot of conflict, and there was some business challenges too. I ended up getting a big fight with her dad, a big legal fight. So there was a lawsuit between me and her family while I was living with her, and we resolved all that, and it ended up being, we were best of friends, her dad and I. But
That sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, we had a lot of,
Jeez.
and so we started going to therapy. I mean, I've been to I have several thousand hours of therapy in the last 10 years between classes we've taken, small groups, like pretty close group work with people that are dealing with addictions and abuse, and learning to empathize and learning to feel. It's the reason why I can get to tears quickly, because I literally learned how to feel as a mechanism for being just a better person, because I had previously learned how to unfeel and was harming myself in that way. And I really committed myself to a therapeutic process. But here's the thing. This is why I love what I do. And this is why I believe so strongly in what I do. You know, there's things in my life. I just said in the last 10 years, I've been to a couple thousand hours of therapy.
Yeah.
Most people just don't have the time. And if they do have the time, they don't have the money.
Yeah, that both.
You know, 4 years, I have a genetic condition in my family, which created a lot of shame and a lot of work I had to overcome. I always felt ugly. I always felt like a mutant or something. And it's also a legitimate genetic condition that you don't want to pass on to your children. So when we decided to have our own kid 4 years ago, that wasn't just something we could do on a Saturday night, right? I had to do in vitro fertilization. I had to do genetic testing. My wife had difficult pregnancies. We had to get a surrogate. You know, it was probably $100,000 2-year process to make a baby. Again, and by the way, with that baby, I was home. I was in the house every single day of her first year of life.
You know, that like everything you just said was so eye-opening, right? Because the first half of this, or first 3/4 of it, you know, everything seems like, wow, everything's flowing. This guy like doesn't have any issues. There's no problems. And from an outside perspective, 95% of the people probably think that, right? But then you come in with these raw emotions and these actual challenges that you've had, and you know, explaining all that, it's awesome. I mean, not awesome that you went through that, but it's really good to see that you came out as a better person, and people can, you know what I mean? And that's what's beautiful about it. And there's got to be something deep there, that why you want to be so, you know, better all the time, and why, you know, financially successful and stuff like that. That's just driven you your whole entire life. You know, I mean, obviously you figured out there's something there that drives you.
Yeah. So one of the classes I took in therapy was I want to say it was an 8-week class, 3 hours, 1 night a week. So I guess this was a 24-hour class. It was called your inner sentence class. And you basically go figure out, like, what is these sort of, you know, subconscious constructs, the core narrative that you decided on about the world roughly around the time you were 8 years old, when you transitioned out of a theta brain state into a more conscientious brain state, between 8 and 10 years old. Everybody has this core sentence, and there's a process you can use to get to it. And it's essentially the filter that you run everything in your life through. And it's based on things that happened to you when you were a child. And one of the great quotes I've heard about children is that they're they're as brilliant at observation as they are terrible at translation. So they pick up everything, and they have no clue what any of it means. And children are extremely solipsistic because of their brain state. They are the center of their own world. That's actually part of the growth of the brain, is learning about external perspective and consciousness. But when we're born, we are the center of it all, right? And we slowly grow out of that. So the whole time we're observing all this stuff, and we're experiencing all this stuff, and we're highly sensitive to it, we're processing everything as if it has some sort of personal significant meaning. It's never just, oh, they were having a bad day. It's, oh, I did something wrong to upset them, right? which is really tragic because we're all figuring out what our core beliefs about the world at a time where we're personalizing everything.
Wow.
So here I was, 8 years old. Anyway, and it's a beautiful process to see other people go through. You learn so much. But for me, my inner sentence until the first time I took this class and actually started working on changing it was, I'll be okay if I'm good enough. And that came from a lot of experiences, but I'll be okay if I'm good enough. It was a performance-based existence. And that drove me in a really negative way for a long time, in a really exhaustive way. I performed, I did things well. I was a self-taught piano player who was professional by 22. I didn't even start till I was 17. And I dropped out of high school and played piano for 10 hours a day because, again, I was scared I was going to have to get a job if I didn't. And, ended up getting a scholarship and was first chair in the jazz program at university. Even though I dropped out of high school, I still got into college playing piano. I was able to earn accolades. I was able to achieve my way into self-esteem, basically. And, when I got into affiliate marketing, I went from zero to hero in like 6 months. I was one of the success stories. And next thing you know, people are using my story in their funnels as a case study. And that's all great and fine, but that's exhausting. And it was driven by, I'll be okay if I'm good enough. But then you get into like strengths focus and positive psychology, and you realize, okay, the idea isn't to deconstruct yourself and dismantle the things that are working. The idea is to reframe things so that you can actually play to your strengths. And so I took all that same drive and that same energy and realized, hey, you know what? I am out to prove something, but instead of trying to prove it to everyone else, let me prove it to myself. And that's kind of what I've been doing since. And functionally, it shows up really similarly, but it feels a lot better.
It feels a lot better. Yeah, that's great, man. Do you remember do you remember the course or where somebody can find that? I'm interested.
Oh, yeah. It's a brilliant local therapist here in town. His name is Steve Allred, but I don't think he even does it anymore.
Okay. All right. So that's long gone.
It all comes out of his work. He comes out of the work. So there's a couple guys I could steer people to, like Albert Ellis and the Ellis paradigm. He's the creator of rational emotive behavior therapy. William Glasser and choice theory is kind of a big derivative. And what's the guy at Stanford? His website is feelinggood.com. Okay. David Burns, incredibly, probably the same in terms of a tactical process for changing your brain. David Burns. And by the way, Chloe is a derivative of all these same theories, who sits on the board with Tony Robbins and is actually at the core of most of his stuff that's really, really great. It's coming out of his work with her.
I'm sorry, it froze at her name. What was her name?
Oh, her name is Chloe Madonis.
Oh, I've heard her name. Okay. Cool, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, you could contact the old therapist there that doesn't do it anymore. Have him tell you everything, create a course out of it, and you can sell it.
Yeah, well, I actually weave a lot of this into the Entre Blueprint in my program. A lot of it is around. You notice the fifth core personal value was we practice effective communication. And one of the things that I've worked really, really hard on, in fact, I know a lot of this conversation is geared towards parenting. I've worked really, really hard on internalizing this concept of nonviolent communication, which is a guy named Marshall Rosenberg actually created the Institute for Nonviolent Communication. And it's, that sounds extreme, violent communication, but basically it's always about creating energetic and relational parity. So like if you said to me, Jeff, that's a great idea. In a way, you would actually be casting a judgment on me. Granted, you might say it's a positive judgment, but still you're sort of taking a position that like, I'm in a place to tell you if it is or is not a good idea. So in this moment, you're actually quite fortunate because I'm telling you it was a great idea, right? It's still not a balanced statement. But if you say, Jeff, I love that idea, you haven't judged me. You've actually just shared a feeling.
Wow, I've never heard that before, but that was an aha moment. Holy crap.
And so we work on that. My wife and I used to drive home from our classes and we would practice for hours speaking to each other in a nonviolent way. And we would literally do rewinds and do-overs until we got it. And now we really, really work to use it with our kids. And anyway, that's actually part of the Entre Blueprint. I teach this stuff in my course too. Like people come to my course thinking they're going to learn how to, set up a Shopify store. And I'm like, hold on, we got a lot of other work to do.
And then they're like, wow, this is better than I thought. This is
And it's
great.
and it's honestly 9 times out of 10, it's very well received.
Yeah, that's cool. I have to look that one up. I'll have to look that one up if anything you've said so far. That's interesting. I love that kind of stuff. Removing certain words in our language, like the word hate or the word but, replacing it with like and, stuff like that. So I love that kind of
And you run
nonviolent
into
language.
you get a lot of friction on that idea from parents that want to praise their kids and tell them they did a good job. And you
Right.
try to and you define that as violent communication, and they get
Yeah.
real defensive.
Yeah, because if I sat here and you did something and I was like, you're doing a really good job, Jeff, as do it with your life. You look at me like, dude, yeah. And your kids feel the same way. They're just
Yeah,
humans.
our therapist. If you say that, our therapist, and it's all done out of love, but he'll go, "That giving me my hit." It feels so good when you say that, right? And I want more, so I'll try to please you more, so I get more of it.
Interesting. Dang, I could talk to you for a long time and become just a totally awesome, or more awesome person. That's great. Look at that. Now, is that not, is that violent communication?
I think that was probably in the gray. I'd take it as I think you intended, which is very, very peaceful. But again, this is what happened. This is the leftovers of man. If I don't really get in and figure this out and self-educate in a way, I mean, schools don't teach this stuff,
right? Right.
And
yeah.
I'm going to be miserable and average, and I use that term average, which is 7/8 of the term have rage. Which is how I feel about ending up average. I think that because I grew up with it, I have all these theories about my life, but I think because I grew up feeling so alien, I used to have dreams about being from another planet. And I have this genetic conditions. I got bullied a lot. And I've kind of grown as I've gotten older. I didn't used to want, it took me 35 years of my life to even, there were like 2 people in my life that knew I had a genetic condition, maybe 3. It was like my parents and my wife. As I've gotten older, I think we all have a condition that's called shame, or just feeling not normal, abnormality, right? Whatever that even means. But for me, I actually was able to put a condition on it called Waardenburg syndrome, and it, that became my avatar for just feeling like a different feeling, foreign. That's the word, I guess, alien. But which we all do kind of have that feeling. I've come to learn, but now I share it. But I think because of that, I got very comfortable with the idea that trying to be like everyone else was just not even an option for me. At least everybody else has this illusion that they can fit in.
So it almost worked in your favor to a point.
Yeah. Especially once I reframed it to make it less tiring.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool, man. That's. Well, you know what? Here's I guess I'll ask you this. Usually I ask people, what they would go back and tell their 18-year-old self, but I want to ask you a different question. What you've done a lot, and you're continuing to do a lot and be better all the time. And what would you want it to say on your tombstone? You don't get a lot of room on there. What would you like it to say someday?
Despite the fact that I've taught this exercise, I've never actually landed on a stock response to this exercise. So I don't have it in my wallet or anything. So I'm gonna kind of make it up. And what I find is it seems to change almost by the day. Well, I think that what I would want to be remembered for, and maybe perhaps quipped about, would be like, in the end, that like I've people, what would I try to say? I would say that basically I came out on top of my own mountain. Like I'm the mountain and I'm the summit, and I can inhabit whatever part of my own shit that I want. And I want to come out on top of my own shit. Because I think when you do that, you empower a whole lot of other people in a way that they're not probably getting from most of the rest of their life.
That's the first thing that came to my mind when you said that. So that's awesome.
Like
That's really well.
I've had a hard enough time psychologically to the point where I some days wonder if I have mental health problems. Because I don't know. You don't know. You don't freaking know what life is supposed to feel like or what thoughts are supposed to encapsulate. There's no handbook for that. I just know that it's really freaking hard a lot of the time. And half of it seems to be problems I create for myself.
Right.
So to come out on top of my own mountain, I feel like people are going to take solace in knowing that yeah, man, like he made crazy look okay.
Cool.
Jeff, so I can be too.
That was man. It's been a pleasure. It is. This was great. I appreciate it. You know, just so you know, this like 15-day. I'm doing 15. 30 was just too much of an achievement for myself. I reached a little too high with that. It's unnecessary too. Right. I realized after I did a couple. It's a total different interview that I do during this. So in the future, down the road, once this goes through, maybe in 2-3 months, I'd love to have you back on and have an actual mindful impact conversation for a full hour. Maybe it's 6 months down the road, something. But I'd love to get you back on.
Dude, I would appreciate it, man. Yeah, and actually, that would be great. I have a book that's coming out probably by the end of next month is the goal.
Oh, okay.
And so then I'll be all rah to come out and talk about my book, and we can have a whole different conversation. So
what's the title of it?
Millionaire Secrets, Things Rich People Know But Don't Tell You.
Millionaire Secrets, things. I have a question because I feel like that title has probably been taken before. Are you able to make any title you want for a book?
You can, and there's actually not a book called Millionaire Secrets that I found. There's Millionaire Success Habits right now.
Okay. I only say because I would think.
Yeah, there's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, which I have a copy of here. Strangely, Millionaire Secrets is not available.
Wow. Good find.
Or was not taken. And in fact, the domain millionairesecrets.com, I'm not nervous to share this. If it was a common domain, somebody was going to go buy it, I'd be nervous, but it's actually at auction right now for $25,000. And
don't worry, nobody listening to my most likely is going to buy this, so don't worry. It's fine. Okay. All right. At auction, are you going to bid on that or what?
Look to come out, and then I'm going to have a real hard conversation with myself about how bad I want that domain. But yeah,
come on. And during your affiliate marketing days, you spent that at the club one night. I mean, you can buy that domain.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm 40. I'm 40 years old now, so I'm very mature. Right?
Yeah, right. Well, at least you make better decisions at 40 years old. That's for sure. Thoughtful.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to teach my kids the value of money. Look, let's use that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Yeah, dude. I mean, see, the thing about it with you yourself, I would have loved to talk more about like techniques, things you're doing with your kids that you talk to, like. I would love to get into that more, but unfortunately, this isn't.
I'll share this. I'll share this as a parting anecdote. So,
okay.
Funnel Hacking Live is next week.
Yep.
I have two sons, a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I think you don't parent every child the same way, right? Just like you don't converse with every friend the same way. Right. My oldest son absolutely thrives in school. Does great. He's on a great path. My younger son really struggles in school. He's just not wired for it any more than I was. I'm a high school dropout, So next week, I'm taking him to Funnel Hacking Live with me. I want him to understand this whole what feels like an alternate universe, alternate economy, alternate skill set, alternate opportunity base, where I think he would absolutely crush it. The guy's a born marketer, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Do you have any of those awards?
His teachers aren't happy. They think I'm doing him a disservice.
What? Well, I mean, yeah, I don't even have words for that, but he's going to be able to experience something where it's like, okay, I actually, don't because it can be like uncomfortable, right? You can make you feel like you're alone and not normal if you're not succeeding at school. And for him to see that, it's going to be pretty cool. And that's a great
Mhm.
thing for you to do. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, here's what a bunch of high school and college dropouts ended up doing with their life. Take it all in, you know.
Have you gotten any of those awards, those comma awards or whatever?
No, I don't actually use ClickFunnels for my checkouts. I actually use it to build landing pages, and then I pull them into my own custom system. So I can never get any credit for my sales with their stuff. But
all good. Cool, Jeff. Well, thank you, man. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. So these are going to come out. I'll tell you what Friday it's. I do a Friday reflection Fridays on my podcast.
Cool.
And I'm just going to replace them for the next 6 weeks or so, or 10 weeks with these interviews.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you having me on. I love good conversations with good people. And because I was the guest, I felt like it was okay, probably in violent fashion, to talk about myself a lot. But that's not actually my normal energy. I would love to know more about you and the stuff you're doing, which I'm going to tune into the podcast and start learning that. So.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, that was the whole point, is me kind of guide us and figure out, you know, you were a more of a challenge, because you would be somebody that honestly I would just have on my podcast. So I'm sitting here, you know what I mean, as a regular guest. And so, you know, so that was like where I was like, oh my, I want to ask him these questions about mindfulness and family and this and that. And then, but I also have this list of like, you know, what it means to be a male and, you know, your emotions and all that. And so it was cool, but thank you.
Well, good. Anyways, I appreciate